Yes, it is true. The Black Ace Hockey Podcast is back in action in a holiday week. My name is Blaine Adams. I'm right here as always with your co-host, Nick Jenks Jenkins. What are you thankful for this year, Jenks?
What am I thankful for? Oh man, I didn't know you were gonna put me on the spot.
I'm
to start.
creative out here. That's
Oh
why I
man,
get the big bucks.
you're killing me. Uh, you know, that's a really good question. I'm thankful for a lot of things. Thankful for I'm not gonna, of course I'm thankful for family and friends. I'm not gonna do any of that boring stuff. Everybody's thankful for their friends.
Standard operation, yeah.
Standard operation. What? That's when you're going around the table at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
All right, sweetie, what are you thankful for this year? I'm thankful for my mom and dad. Get out of here with that standard crap. Everybody loves their family. Well, I think most people love their
I
family.
hope you would. Yes, I hope you would.
This is going to be super cliche, but I am thankful for the sport that we love, right?
Okay.
We're talking hockey here. We love hockey. We grew up. It's become such a big part of our lives, right? I don't know what I would do with my time. Like, I would probably be such a different person if I didn't have the game of hockey throughout my life.
Yeah.
I'm sure you feel the same way. Like, it's become such a big part of you, and it took up so much of your time growing up. Like, it helps shape who you are, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think the same way. Like, obviously, friends, family, significant others, like the whole spiel.
Right.
But it's good to be able to wake up out of the bed every day and just do what you want to do. And we're here recording, in front of tens of millions of viewers. So it's always fun to just chat with you and chat with anybody else. But yeah, I think, going off of like just hockey shaping you, it's funny because like I have this conversation kind of all the time now where like sports in general aren't just about the game. It's about like building character and like, we talk about like, oh, that's an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, things like that. And that's kind of the whole point of hockey, like being able to win and lose with the same grace and compassion on both sides. Now, I'm not going to say I've did that all the time. And I think if you do that all the time, you're a special human being. Like you're Crosby level etiquette. But even Crosby, when he was 18, 19, and even like you're seeing it with Bedard, you get frustrated, things come out, we're human. Like shit happens. But it's just knowing and realizing and just being able to live I don't even know how to say this. Like just a simple life, like just simple. Like you don't gotta overcomplicate some things. People are gonna make mistakes and hurt you, so it is what it is. But that was a good opener right there, Jenks. That was, you caught me off guard too with that shit.
Well, hey, it was your question, man. Let me ask you this one more Thanksgiving question, and then we'll move on.
All right.
The NFL football has become such a big part of Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
You gather around, you get your food, you sit on the couch, you watch football, and you fall asleep because you're in a food coma.
Sure.
There's enough Canadian teams, and the majority of the NHL is Canadian. Should the NHL be playing games? I'm not saying every team plays a game, but should there be like 3 or 4 games to watch on Thanksgiving for hockey?
So I think that's something a USA thing, right? Like Thanksgiving and Canada both have Thanksgivings, but Canada's is in October, right?
Right.
So I think if you would appease the Canadian like holiday, or like you want to just like put out things for the Canadian fans, you have to do it on their Thanksgiving. Like that's their holiday, right? It's different in the US because like say like okay, I'm sure the NHL has done this. They did it in the past where there's probably the ratings are just in the toilet. Just there's nobody watching like at all.
For American viewers, yeah. But I'm thinking. So let me. I'll be more specific. The Canadians don't have. If you're in a Canadian market, like if live in Toronto and you're
Yeah,
a Leafs fan, that Thursday is just another day of the week for you. So
sure.
why not have like Leafs Senators home on Thursday? You're still going to sell out the barn.
Yeah.
All the Canadians are going to be watching. Maybe your viewership dips a little bit because the Americans are watching football instead. But that's a good time to potentially get those two Canadian teams playing
Yeah.
um, another day. It's just a day loss of the calendar that's not being used at this point. So
Yeah, and I think that goes back to just like I always think like all these sports are entertainment, right?
yeah,
Uh, if anybody's ever gone to one of those Renaissance fairs, right, and you put on a certain team, like you're the Blue Knight or you're the Red Knight or whatever, like all that shit's staged, like it's all entertainment. But at some point, like I'm sure those guys like back there, like say like, hey, like I may do this or that, and you have to
yeah,
react based off of like what I do.
right,
So I I think it's kind of like in the same sense of that where we're still in the mindset of like, hey, like this is sports. I love this sport, and I really enjoy having this game on every day. But at the same time, like Gary Bettman's over there, like our ratings literally get cut three-fourths on this one day because the
yeah,
NFL owns it.
right.
I don't know how many Canadian NFL fans there are, but if they enjoy NFL and hockey, I'm sure they're going to pick the NFL over hockey for that day.
Sure,
I mean, because
makes
it's on
sense.
all day. It's on from noon to fucking 10 p.m. So it's a good question. I think it's better suited for the Canadian Thanksgiving rather than the American Thanksgiving because all United States people are hanging with their family too. It's not like you're turning
Right.
on hockey and everybody's going to enjoy it, right? Like you have your whole extended family there. Either you're outside doing something, you're talking, or you're cooking. Like I feel like you're not really watching that much TV. So,
Yep, that's the truth.
um, but yeah, just jumping into the we'll save our other Thanksgiving topic for later in the podcast, where we rate our top three foods of the dinner. So stick around
It's a
for
good,
that.
good,
But
good closer.
just jumping into the hockey news for this week, and the Jenkins curse continues with absolutely
God.
cursing Ovechkin with, oh, the guy stayed healthy for his whole career. Now he has a fractured leg. Way to go, Jenks.
How was I supposed to know?
I mean, you're supposed to talk to the guy constantly. You're supposed to say, hey, don't do this stupid shit.
You know what? I'll give him a call. I'll apologize. I'll tell him this is my fault. I should have kept my mouth shut, or else he wouldn't have gotten hurt. So
Yeah.
that's on me. My bad.
Absolutely devastating news. I mean, he's out, what? I think it happened a week ago, so about 5 more weeks to be fully back. It's not a full fracture, so it's not like his leg is literally hanging off of his body. I think it was a slight fracture, and he was walking around. There were reports about like walking around the media room and stuff. So seems like he's probably on track to get cleared sooner because he's an absolute workhorse. I'm sure they overnighted a couple bags of Russian gasoline and kind of pumped it into his system a little bit. But yeah, he's been on a tear. Hopefully, this doesn't slow him down to hitting that goal record.
Yeah, just a tough break. I mean, you saw him come out and try it again, and he could put weight on his leg, but he was pretty ginger on his leg, and it's like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah,
So and healing from injuries at his age is not the easiest thing in the world. So hopefully he comes back full strength and continues the rapid pace he's been on to start the season. I think everybody started getting excited, saying, "Oh wow, he could actually do it this year."
yeah.
And he's been drawing crowds, and Washington's been on fire too. So they need him. They're actually going to try to make a run this year. They're going to need their captain. So
Yeah, who's Dylan Strom going to pass to now? Like, Just empty space. Like nobody's gonna be standing in the one spot that he's practiced 1,000 hours on. So
They're gonna like it's gonna become second nature. They're just gonna pass the spot, and there's gonna be nobody there, and it's gonna go
right,
and hit the boards.
right. People are gonna be like, "What the fuck?" and start booing. Oh man, but this season just seems like the season of records. Like we saw Eric Johnson. I don't know what team he's on now. He got traded from the Avs, hit his 1,000 game marker. They had Landy out there to help distribute the stick for him, and Crosby hits another milestone that was long overdue. Hits 600 Genos this past week, and this guy just seems to be unstoppable right now. But the Penguins are hurting. Like the Penguins are so bad that when Crosby hits records, it overshadows the whole
Oh
thing,
yeah.
the whole ordeal. So, give me your thoughts on just like the state of the Penguins right now, and then we'll get into like some of the coaching.
So I'm trying to verify because last I looked, they were like, okay, so they are currently, as we speak today, the fourth worst team
Yeah,
in the NHL. And I believe, let's just verify that, they have the worst goal differential in the NHL. Worse than the Sharks, worse than Montreal. Just, they can't keep the puck out of their own net.
yeah,
Their defense is abysmal right now. They can't find goaltending, but, you know, I've talked to several people, and I mean, a lot of our, just based off of the region we live in and where we went to school, we've got a lot of Penguin friends. So
yeah.
I've talked to a couple of our buddies who are Penguins fans, and it seems like everybody's calling for the coach's head. I mean, Sully's had a lot of success with the Penguins. He's been around a long time at this point, and you have to wonder if some shakeup at coach is it's time to try something. I mean, they made another roster move, traded for Tomasino from Nashville.
Got some draft
So
picks too for
yeah, got
recently
some
for
draft
the
picks for Lars Eller. I mean, Dubas is trying to shake things up a little bit, but I mean, at what point do you say we need a new message in the locker room here? Sorry, Sully, you've been so good for us, but it's time.
yeah. I I don't know because the guy's kind of like he's like Barack Obama in the way like just people love the way he talks. It's just like he's just so fluent with his words, and I
Mm-hmm.
think when I think of coaching, and especially at that level, you're really not a coach. You're just a motivator. Now there's systems you can put in place, like I want to only do a trap, a 1-2-2 at this point of the game, or put Gino and Sid on a line together every other time the puck's in the zone. Stuff like that you can think about, but as a head coach in the NHL, you're like, trying to limit the fights on the bench, trying to limit the goaltending being absolute head cases and mental asylum patients all the time. So it's like that's more of like the coaching that you want, and I think Sullivan meets those boxes. It's just maybe to what you said, like he needs to deliver his message in a different way. Like, hey, like maybe we got to trade somebody important, like trade Malkin or trade Carlson, and be like, boys, like if shit doesn't get real right now, everybody's going. You're Jake Gensel off to Carolina, or you're off to Utah, where you don't even get sun up there. It's so cold. Like that's where you're going, and um, I honestly think like every year it seems the Penguins everybody's on the table to trade. Everybody's gonna be traded, and nobody important gets traded. Like we traded Lars Eller. Like I was calling for that guy as soon as we signed him to be traded. Like these people, we're just collecting ancient artifacts. Like Carlson, good, but he's ancient. Gino, good, but he's ancient. We got to shake it up in a big way in order for people to take it serious. And I don't know if coaching is the right avenue right now.
I think that's fair. That's a fair assessment. I mean, I agree with you. There's definitely a big roster move to be made here to really shake things up. I mean,
Yes.
it, Carlson has been, I've always been very critical of Letang's defensive play over
Hmm.
the years, basically saying it's like we're running four freaking forwards out there.
Yeah.
Carlson has been doing that all year. He is getting burned, looking like a pylon. And I don't know what his plus minus is off the top of my head, but it's got to be the one of the worst in the NHL. Every time I watch the games, it just seems like he's getting embarrassed. He's out of position. He can't get back. You know what he does offensively, sure it helps. He runs a good power play, um, makes great outlet passes, but if you can't play defense, that's something that we've got to pay attention to. I don't know that we've got anybody on the Pens right now who I look at and say I feel comfortable when that guy's on the ice.
Yeah.
So probably time to move out a guy like Carlson at this point. If you can get something for him, you probably pull the trigger.
That's the thing. Like, I don't know if you can because he has a massive contract, and like he signed that contract with the Sharks back when he won the Norris. So it's like, what can you do other than just like pray he gets better, or
Well,
like eat half the salary?
I think what helps is if the Pens trade him, his salary's already been retained twice. So that huge number that he signed with the Sharks, by the time the contract gets to that third team, assuming that the Pens retain some, it's not going to be that big of a number.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for a if you're a team that's looking for an offensive minded right shot defenseman, somebody to run your power play, he's probably the guy.
Yeah.
But you got to pair him with somebody who's defense first, or it's not going to work.
Yeah. I always think about this. Like, imagine being paid by a team to not play for them. Like, hey, we like you so much that we're paying you to not play on our team. like, like, please go away. Oh man, that's gotta hurt.
What about all those contracts of players who like retire and then their contract gets passed to Arizona because Arizona just needs to hit the cap floor? So
Yeah.
it's like you've got like Chris Pronger who hasn't played in the NHL in 10 years and he's still getting paid by
Well,
Arizona.
didn't Voracek do that? Like, there was like four or
Yeah.
five guys that were sent to Arizona that were like, I thought he was done playing hockey. Like, didn't he call his retirement? Like, all right, whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
when I look at the Pens, it's just like I don't know if goalies is the issue because at what point do you stop like scouting? Like, hey boys, like our scouting department's fucking terrible. If we can't scout a goalie, like I'm sorry if you hey whoever won the World Juniors, that guy, we want him. Like that's how easy it is for me. Like let's not go deep into the Swiss Alps to find
Right.
some DHL guy that has never played before in a competitive environment. Not saying the DHL is bad. I'm just saying, like it's on a different level. But I'm sick of like doing all that just to end up every year where we are right now. Like let's just find solid goaltending, like Hellebuck. Like just maybe we look at the NCAA and be like, who we got cooking? Who's the best? And maybe at what point do we start tanking for the number one overall?
Oh, it's got to be about that time. I mean, if you go another few games here and they can't get a win and they keep getting blown out like 6-1 to Utah, like what just happened the other night,
Yeah,
it's got to be time to just go. You know what? Full rebuild.
yeah,
I The reason I think it's more of a defensive problem than a goalie problem is Nedeljkovic and Jari have both had success in the NHL.
yeah,
And Blomqvist is supposed to be a really good prospect. And he's been phenomenal in the AHL. He's shown flashes of brilliance, but no matter who's in the net, we're still getting shelled.
yeah.
So I think it's more a defensive problem than a goaltending problem. I'd still like to see us get the defense figured out and then give Blomqvist a real shot because he looks like he could be pretty good. And he's still really young, so
Yeah, it's like when we got brought in Justin Schultz and Dumoulin, like people like that. Just we just need tall, lanky mother grabbers, like just absolutely aliens back there. That's what we need. We don't need what's that guy's name? Pusatarian or whatever his name is. He's shorter than me and you combined. I don't even understand how this guy's in the NHL. Jinx, to be honest
I'm
with
not
you.
even sure which guy you're talking about.
He's a forward, but I'm just saying. Or Anthony Bolivier that's playing with Crosby right now. Like, get this guy a household name for once. Christ, get Phil Kessel on the line.
Sign Kessel. Let's just go back and find everybody from the last cup run and
Yeah,
sign them. I
Hagum,
don't care if they're 45 now. Just bring them.
Bonino. Uh,
Yep.
but
HBK.
I guess there is hope because the Oilers were here last year and they went to the Cup. So I mean, look on the bright side. There is a path somehow.
I
We just have to win
appreciate your
a lot of
optimism.
games.
Yeah. I'm glad you're optimistic because I'm pulling the plug. Time to break it
Oh
down.
man, but a few different things happened around the league, and the Bruins decided to shake things up and fired their head coach. And it's funny. I saw a stat that every time a Bruins coach gets fired, he gets hired within a week. Like
It
that's how
happened
good these
again.
guys
Yep.
are. It's just how bad the Bruins are right now.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And because he's already with the Blues and he already
Yeah.
has a win with the Blues. So, yep, good stat. Love it. And I saw something else. I think it was on Twitter, where they're like, when Jim Montgomery was fired from the Bruins, his record was like 130 something and 50. Like it was a
Yeah.
really good record. And there were some interviews from. I definitely saw the one from Pasternak, and I think there was another one that somebody else did. I think it might have been McAvoy or Swayman, one of those guys, basically saying, we couldn't get our shit together and we lost a good coach because of that, and this is kind of on us.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question that he's a good coach. I think that's just management going back to saying we need a new message in the room. We can't get this thing turned around. It feels like we're floundering a little bit. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this sparks the Bruins to turn their season around or not, because there's some games where they look like the old Bruins. Then there's some games where it's like, oh, you guys look like it's time to rebuild.
Yeah.
You just can't make heads or tails out of it.
Yeah, it's tough to because I don't want to sit here and say it's still kind of early in the season because once All Star
Right.
break hits, that's when I think teams kind of dial in and say can we make this or can we not make this?
Right.
So it's always tough to see, but the Bruins, I'm praying on their downfall at all times. And sometimes this associate coach comes in named Joe Sacco for those of you who are wondering who's behind the bench, and it could possibly be a Sheldon Keefe situation where there's a guy that comes in that doesn't really have that much NHL coaching experience, or head coaching experience, and just kind of brings a different message. Like he's more soft spoken instead of hard nosed, or maybe he's hard nosed instead of being like, yeah, okay, just it's okay that you dump the puck in instead of you know keeping it on your stick for a 2-on-0. It's okay, that happens. No, that doesn't happen. Fucking
Yep.
pass me the puck, buddy. Like, um, so, so it's just changing it up. New scenery, I think, is always good. And it's not to bag on Jim Montgomery. It's just sometimes the players that the GM assembled don't match the coaching style and the personality that's behind the bench. So sometimes just getting a different view on things is always important. And different views is what the Rangers have gone through lately. Is they just appointed Trouba as their captain, right? Last year they just appointed him. He won all sorts of awards just because he's the captain for the the New York Rangers. He should have won the award for the biggest dirt bag on the ice too, but it is what it is. But the Rangers started off on fire. Igor asking for a gajillion $1 million a year. Now, not Igor, Rangers going through a dry spell where their GM is looking at hey, who's on the table? We got Kreider. We
I
got
saw that. Yeah.
Zibanejad. We got Trouba. Hey, take Igor's contract off. I don't care. What are your thoughts around the Rangers as a whole?
Yeah, I saw that where he basically said we're looking to make a change here, and specifically stated guys like Truba and Kreider, and you're like, those are core guys of that team at this point.
Yeah,
Kreider's been there forever, I believe his whole career. So for them to, and both of those guys wear letters, right? You said Truba's the C, Kreider's been an A for a while, so
I
you're
feel
you're
like
talking
Kreider's
about.
a power penalty kill master. Like
Yes, he's got so many shorthanded points,
yeah,
it's ridiculous. But that's a serious shakeup. You're looking at trading out leadership guys, core guys who have been around your locker room forever. You're really looking to make a change.
yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what changes they decide to make. Um, I think to the right home, they could really fetch a return for guys like Truba and Kreider. Um, there's a lot of teams in the NHL that could use Kreider's scoring touch. Even though I think he's mid 30s at this point. He's still got a ton of 40 goal seasons and a couple 50 goal seasons
Yeah.
too. So, maybe those are the best guys to be moving out. I know Zibanejad's another one you mentioned. He's had a little bit of a tough year. And he's come out on social media and said he knows he's having a tough year and he feels it. So that could be another one where if you get the right package, maybe you move on from him. I think probably the only two untouchable guys on that roster at this point are Panarin and Shesterkin. Otherwise,
You don't think
they're listening.
Lafreniere is untouchable?
I don't think he's untouchable, but boy oh boy, does he
He's.
look like a different player now than he did a couple of
Mm-hmm.
years ago.
I know. Starting to eat my own words, but hey, sounds tough love. Tough love. Maybe he heard me and was like, "Hey, gotta prove Blaine wrong."
That's exactly what he said. He's got that written in his stall. He
I'm
said,
sure.
Blaine Adams hates me. That's
Yeah.
what he's got written above his stall.
He'll never draft me in fantasy. I gotta change that. Ever. Oh man. But another guy in the same division, Hischier, recording his first ever Hattie. I'm actually pretty pumped about this because he coming into the NHL was pretty much the equivalent of Jack Eichel hype. Like he came in was like this guy's gonna be lighting it up and just never did. Kind of like the Jack Hughes where came into the NHL and people were like, "Oh my God, we're seeing greatness," but we're gonna have to see greatness in 4 or 5 seasons. So and he sure just never clicked. He never like switched over to being great. He was always good. So I think he switched to more of a leadership role in the locker room, and that's when he started to turn the tables. Got to see, and now first ever Hattie recorded are the Devils, like I predicted, knocking on wood, on a roll here.
They seem to be. I mean, the fact that they're getting scoring from everybody at this point, I know Heishier is having a great year, but everybody's chipping in. Hughes is having an okay year. They're getting goals from guys up and down the lineup. So
Yep.
it's a really good sign if you're a Devils fan. Heishier, I think it's been a slow start to him from a scoring side, but I don't think he gets enough love for his defensive play. He's one of the better defensive centers in the NHL. I believe he has one or two Selke nominations at this point, being recognized for that, and he deserves to be in the conversation. So the scoring was going to come sooner or later. He is that good of a player, and it just makes sense that he's finally getting there, and now people are starting to recognize, oh, this guy always had the scoring ability, but it just took a little bit of time to get there. So he's a complete player. He reminds me a lot of like a Barkov in a way.
Yeah.
Barkov struggled to score at the beginning, blah, 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 the beginning of his career, and is putting up some points now and is still that dominant two-way center. So, yeah, glad to see Hischier lighting it up, and watch out for the Devils. They're going to be a problem all season long, and they're going to go on a run here in the playoffs.
And and I look at some of these teams like Carolina and New Jersey, and I'm like, full of young talent, full of like kind of older veterans as well. But why isn't the Anaheim Ducks clicking? And I'm like, dude, they're freaking packed with tons of crazy young talent. Terry, Zegras, Carlson. I just don't understand how they can't um, figure it out. And maybe this leads into our next topic about trades and rumors going around the league. Is are the Ducks going to be the next team to fire their coach? Because I think they have the talent on the team to at least go far into the playoffs. I wouldn't say win it because they don't have really that many veterans that have been there, done that
Yeah.
before. So maybe they make it past the first round. I think that could be a very realistic thing. So do you think something like that could shake up maybe the Anaheim Ducks having a run?
It could. It's a good point. I definitely agree with you. They've got tons of talent. I mean, look up and down that roster from guys that they've brought in the last 3 or 4 years. You said a couple of them: Zegras, like McTavish, Leo Carlson,
Drysdale.
Troy. Yeah, Drysdale's in Philly now.
Oh, he was traded for
He
that guy.
he
That
was
that
part of
kid.
the Gauthier
The
trade.
Gotham,
Yeah.
yeah.
But still, even Cutter Gauthier was hyped coming into the league, and he
Yeah.
should figure it out. I mean, he's a rookie, so um, you know, I think they've got all this young talent. It's got to start coming together. Maybe this year's not the year, but
Yeah.
if it doesn't start to look better by the end of this year or next year, you're probably making a change, saying we've got to figure something out with all these young studs because at some point we're not going to be able to afford them all because they're just that good.
Fair enough.
So yeah, they should start turning a corner here soon. Hopefully it's this year, but I don't know. Depends on how patient the management wants to be with the team. If they're feeling antsy, maybe they move on from the coach and say we need a new message. We got to turn this around quicker than we have been.
Yeah. And going off of our trades topic right now is it too early in the season? Like I think we all see the trade deadline craziness that has happened the last couple of years, where at least one team has traded one guy, or every team has traded one guy. So, um, is it too early? Is this a little different this year, where teams are like, hey, we got that guy last year at the trade deadline, signed him to a 2 year, and it's just not working out, and get rid of him sooner rather than later.
I think it's tough because if you're a team who has high expectations, like I think of Nashville, they got Stamkos and Marchessault over the summer, and everybody goes, "This team's a contender now,"
Yeah,
and they are struggling hard. And now it's a question of you went from being a contender to holy crap, are we even going to make the playoffs?
yeah,
That's a dramatic shift. So if you're in that situation, you're probably looking to change something just to generate a spark, and you want to do so sooner than later. So that makes sense. The things that I don't understand are teams giving up on young players. One of the
yeah.
rumors that is floating around, and it seems like it's got some traction to it, is Columbus with this Juracek kid, who they drafted like I think it was fourth or fifth overall, something like that,
Hmm.
only a few years ago, and they haven't given him a ton of time in the NHL. He's been playing a lot in the AHL, but the rumor is that they're ready to move on from him. And at what point do you look at a player and you say, "We don't think this is going to work out. We're moving on." And
Yeah.
especially from a guy with that draft pedigree, and the talent that everybody thinks he has. I don't know. This is above our pay grade. This is why they're getting paid the big bucks to make these decisions. But what do you look at? What makes you look at a player and say, "Yep, time to move on," or we don't think he's got it, or maybe they're just saying, "We know we can get something for you at this point because you need a fresh start, and it's just not going to work out with us." What are your thoughts around the young players in particular?
Why I think most young players, when you're at that level, it's all about how you're taking the criticism that you're receiving. And if their goalie coach is saying like, hey, like let's practice on side edge work, or like maybe move your glove here instead of here. Like I don't know what, I've never played goalie, so I could be making shit up. All I know is glove side high all day. So that's all I know. so but like if he's not willing to make those adjustments, that could be an issue right off the get-go. And I go back to what Torch is saying, is like it's all about the process. Like we're not trying to force this guy into the NHL and make a big splash. And I think that's where the communication between organization and player being like, hey, we know you're not going to be good in the first year, maybe not the second year. But if you are, holy shit, thank you. But we know realistically this is going to be a 5-year project. Now, at that 5-year mark, or 3-year mark, or whatever it is, do you say, have you progressed? Like maybe we put you in your first year for 5 games and you won 0. Second year you won 2 out of the 5 that we put you in. Third year we played 12 games and we won only 5 of them. Like I would consider that a decrease in skill rather than increase in ability. So like I think that's when you're like, okay, like hey, let's dish this off to somebody else, or maybe send him down for another couple of years. We all have to think like Fleury took a few years to develop in the AHL. Gensel took a few years to develop in the AHL. And most of these guys, unless you're Crosby level, you're not going to come out on fire. So I think having the model and the communication and being like, hey, what do you expect from me? Like, what's that kid that the Pens just signed? I already forget his name. He's from Michigan. He's from the Winnipeg Jets.
Oh, McGroarty.
McGroarty, yeah. So, like, he wanted to be in the NHL right away. And that's just pure ignorance of a college kid and somebody that's really never had that level of, like, intensity in his life. He's always had it easy. So, like, going to the NHL and being there and being kind of humbled, being like, hey, relax. Like, we know you're good. You're not going to be in the show right away. We'll put you up, but just know if you suck, you're going right back down. So, and that's not on you. It's just you need to develop, and we know you need to develop. Maybe you just need a taste of, like, what it's going to be like. So I think having that communication early in these international players, because these international players that come over are so good over there that when they come over, they're like mid-tier. And then they have to rework the system. Unless you're Kippersoft where you're just nasty. But I think that's my take on it. I agree with you that teams have been dismissing players left and right. But also, if you come into a team that's in the win now mode, there's another added pressure where, like, hey, if you're not helping us, like, you're getting out. You know what I mean? So I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Makes perfect sense. I agree with everything you just said. It's a good perspective on it.
It's called life, Jenks. It's just, just been around the globe 27 times. It just happens like that. On a lighter note, today, November 26th, I don't know if you remember the Merrick Malik shootout goal where he did the in between the legs and just hit the Statue of Liberty celebration. Yeah. That happened 19 years ago to the day. I just want to see your reaction to the shootout goal again, because I was scrolling through it and I'm like, oh my God, this is a defenseman. Like, people don't understand this. This guy doesn't do this ever. And he just did it kind of as a joke. his interview after is just kind of as a joke, and it went in game winner. What are your thoughts, Shanks?
Yeah, I remember that goal very well. And it's like this seemed to be because this was very early on after the NHL implemented shootouts as part of the standard regular season games. And I just remember seeing that highlight, and it was sort of like the first of all these creative shootout moves that were to come. And then we've got a bunch of other famous ones. Datsuk made his famous move, and Forsberg had his famous move, and all these guys just started coming up with these patented moves. And all of a sudden, you've got these young kids trying to go between the legs. And now it's part of the reason, I think that's part of the reason why some of the kids in the NHL today are so creative. College news this week as we head into the Thanksgiving holiday. We have, for the first time this season, a new number one in the country. Denver drops back to back games last weekend to Arizona State at home, and they fall to number two. My preseason pick for the national championship, Michigan State, with 38 first place votes, their first time this season at number one. So they move into the top spot. The other unbeaten team, where are they at? Where are they at? Where are they at? Where are they at? Wow, they dropped pretty far. So Cornell's only played 8 games to this point, so they're a little bit behind everybody else, but they've dropped another 2 games, so they fall down the rankings a little bit further. So our top five is Michigan State, Denver, Minnesota, BC, and the University of Maine. So Michigan's right behind them. They beat the living crap out of Penn State over the weekend, a 10-6 win. So lots of good hockey in college right now. On a unfortunate note, AIC, American International, announced last week that this will be their last season as a Division One program. They're going to drop to Division Two next year, mainly around budgetary reasons. And I think they saw probably the no pun intended, the writing on the wall, with the major junior players able to come in, NIL money, that type of thing. I just feel like they said, we can't float this program on a budget right now. We're going to have an awful hard time competing next season. So we're gonna drop it down and pull the plug. It's always unfortunate to see the NCAA lose a Division One program. Tough on those players and families and the staff and everything to be falling out of D1. It's tough news all around. Hopefully we see them. We saw the resurgence of the Robert Morris program the last couple years. Maybe there's room for a comeback for them. Give it a couple years and take another swing at it and bring it back and go from there. But yeah, unfortunately, AIC will be dropping, and we'll pay attention to this. I wonder if there's going to be some other programs follow suit as we get further into the season. Um, there's some programs that just traditionally don't have a ton of luck. AIC has actually been one of the better teams in the Atlantic Division, so
Yeah.
um, we'll see. It's interesting. There's definitely going to be a lot of changes with college and major junior in particular as the details continue to unfold after the agreement has come into place. So we'll be paying close attention to that. If anything else changes with any of these programs or players continuing to commit to major junior teams, we'll let you know. You'll hear it here first.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about that too. Like, how is this going to affect Mercier's? Where, like, do they just say, hey, we're so far below Denver and like even like Omaha or like just those higher epsilon teams that are going to be pumping money into these Canadian junior players that
Yeah.
do you think we'll see a split in D1 where like we see in college football where there's the FBS and then the FCS where maybe we give these lower not lower, but like smaller schools the ability to compete for something instead of always just competing for not last.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know if there's enough hockey teams to really float two different leagues.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about D1 football though. There's FBS and FCS, but at the same time, there's like 130 some teams in the FBS. And if you're like Kent State, you're never competing for a national
Yeah.
championship, but you've got to play all these teams. So, maybe your championship is winning your conference and they
Right.
just restructure the conferences so that like the Atlantic is pretty traditionally weak as it is. So maybe you just say we're going to have a couple powerhouse conferences. Like if I think of football, I think of the SEC, the Big Ten, ACC to some degree, like those conferences, and then you've got the MAC. So
Yeah.
maybe there's some restructuring to go on, and you come out and Merciers can say we had a successful season, we won the Atlantic,
Yeah.
and we went to the tournament. We just couldn't keep up with the Denvers and the Michigans and those teams. So
Right.
I think there's definitely more change to come. We just don't know what it's going to look like yet.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Moving on to the favorite section of the podcast, writing on your wall pick. We're doing. I lost my pick last week. The Pens got absolutely run over by Utah, so I mean can't pick them anymore. It just seems like their writing on the wall is pretty clear. We're doing November 30th, Thanksgiving weekend. Jenks, what is your writing on the wall pick?
Well, you just picked the Pens last week, and you just sort of crapped all over my idea of picking them this week. But you know what? I don't really care. We're
Oh
taking the
man.
Pens this week, baby, because I look at this schedule. There's a lot of good games to watch on Thanksgiving weekend. They are the prime time slot on NHL Network at home against the
Okay.
Calgary Flames. The Flames are traveling cross country. Man, they're not going to be stuffed up with turkey or anything because they're the Canadian market. But that is not an easy trip to go from Calgary to Pittsburgh. I think that prime time slot at home does a lot for the Pens, and I think at some point here, we've talked a lot about Pittsburgh on this pod. At
Mhm.
some point here, there's got to be some desperation coming from this team. They're gonna have to go out there and just want it more than the other team. And I'm gonna place my bet saying that Saturday is their day. I think they're
All
gonna
right.
get back on the right track, and they're gonna
I'm
have a
all
good
in.
one against Calgary. So Pittsburgh Penguins on Saturday, Saturday, November 30th. Just had to verify the date. So
Yeah.
book that responsibly, friends.
Yes, sir. I'm going with another team that we talked about on the podcast as well. The Blues versus the Flyers. I think the Blues are in the honeymoon phase with Jim Montgomery. They'll be in it for a while, so teams better bring their A game. Um, and I think the Blues are going to take the Flyers pretty handedly. Flyers really in a struggle. They
Yeah.
got Mitchkov going in and out of the lineup, and I think it's good for him and his development. But I think they just need to bring more to the table. Their whole goalie situation is absolutely abysmal. So hopefully they don't figure it out because they absolutely hate the Flyers and they need to be worse than the Pens. So take the Blues over the Flyers on Saturday responsibly, of course. All right, Jenks. Thanksgiving dinner. You got all the food out. It's cooking. It's steaming. What are your top three favorite foods?
First one, we're gonna get it out of the way early because it's probably the easiest pick, and it's the most cliche. You got to give me some of that turkey, man. I don't judge white meat, dark meat. Put it all on the plate. Turkey's about the only. It's about the only time of year that I'm eating turkey. So turkey and Thanksgiving go
Yeah.
hand in hand. So give me that turkey. I'm. It's not at every Thanksgiving dinner, and I don't know why, but I'm a big mac and cheese guy.
Oh man.
So give me some of that baked mac and cheese. Slap that on my plate. You got to round it out with some of your greens too, right? So my third thing's going to be a little bit of that green bean casserole, baby.
Oh man. Yuck.
Honorable mention. I don't hate a good stuffing,
Okay.
And if you have stuffing any day outside of Thanksgiving Day, you're probably insane. Because it's just so ridiculous to make, and it doesn't make any sense to make it on your own. But
Right.
honorable mention stuffing. So give me that turkey, give me some mac and cheese, and give me my greens, green bean casserole. Those are my
Greens,
three.
beans, potatoes. That's all I can think about. That song. All right, my number one, obviously turkey. It's the only day of the year I'll probably ever eat turkey because there's just no reason to make it any other time. Mashed potatoes, number two. A big mash guy. I don't hate. I don't like gravy though, so I'm not adding the gravy. I know people are gonna get upset, but I don't add the gravy.
Hot take.
I
Wow.
don't add
Okay.
gravy, and um, my grandma makes Jello, 3-layer Jello.
Wow.
Fire, fire.
Can you tell her to put it in some little cups for you so you can practice?
I need it. I need it. I need the Jello shot cups to practice. Yeah. But anyway, honorable mention. I don't even know what would be honorable mention. I don't really like. See, I'm a non-veg eater, so like I don't eat all the crazy stuff. Maybe if there's corn on, it has to be corn on the cob. I'm not eating no
Wow, you're
corn
picky.
that's slimed out of a can, Jenks. No way. It's just slime. It's all garbage in there. Ugh,
You
no
can't even
way.
honorable mention some mac. You're not a
I
mac
don't like
guy.
mac and cheese.
Oh man, what is wrong with you?
You know, the gods built my body like a temple. I gotta treat it. You know, they gave me instructions, and I'm keeping it the way it is.
Purely meat and potatoes, nothing else.
It's
Thank
the
you.
only thing a growing man needs. Only thing. Anyways, guys, make sure to follow us on Instagram and YouTube, Black Laces Hockey. Um, and everybody have a good Thanksgiving. Enjoy time with family, friends, all that shit. My name is Blaine Adams. I'm right here as always with your co-host Nick Jenks Jenkins. And we're out of here. Later.